Yeah, good evening, everybody. So, how are you and how are the studies going on? Just give me 1 second. Hanji. So, I did not get any response. How are the studies going on? Any questions, any doubts from whatever we have discussed so far? Any queries? So as no questions are coming up, we're starting with the discussion for today. I discussed with you in the last class about inventory management and also about debtors management, that is also called the credit policy of the company. Now in that we had discussed with you some of the questions on debtors management, but to my great surprise, when I was checking the last examination question paper in new syllabus, I could see that there were 3 questions from debtors management in the last examination. Now it's very, very surprising. 3 questions from the same topic coming in the examination and 1 full question on working capital management. That made a weightage of around 40% of the question paper, more than 40% rather, coming from this particular chapter. Now this is a little too much, but this is something which is a fact as well. I have included some of the questions in today's discussion from the last exam, and all of them are practical questions. So almost 40 mark practical question coming from this chapter in the last examination. I think that was a little too much of imbalance in the question paper. Now so far as FTFM question paper is concerned, this is something which has been very, very common. So therefore you never know which particular topic will become very, very important for a particular examination. Though all the questions that came in the examination were based upon the pattern which we had already discussed in the classes and which we have discussed in this batch as well, but then it becomes a little difficult for the students to accept so many questions coming from one particular topic. But that is a fact, and this is something which we have observed in many other exams, many other exams of the same paper, FTFM. So here, and as I think Nikhila was also saying that this is one chapter where at times if a particular student takes time to understand, then it takes a little longer to understand these concepts. So basically what I have to say is that every chapter in FTFM is very, very important, because you never know from which particular chapter the question paper would be asked, and at times any chapter can take more than 20-25%. It is very, very common. So therefore you have to be very particular with respect to each and every chapter. You cannot say that this chapter has got more weightage or that chapter has got more weightage. Every chapter has got equal chance, and when I do the second round of exam preparatory with you, at that time I would be taking the most important chapters from where there are more chances of getting, a 35-40 mark paper. Amongst them, as I am going to, announce right now only, the chapters would be working capital management, chapters would be security analysis and portfolio management, foreign exchange management, and derivatives. Out of these chapters, you never know when the question paper is skewed towards these topics, right? So and another one can be your capital budgeting. So if you look at the syllabus that I'm talking about, I think I'm covering almost the entire syllabus from the chapters like dividend policy, capital structure, cost of capital. We have been getting papers, we have been getting questions, but in most of the situations, the per chapter weightage will not go beyond 10 marks, whether it is dividend policy or it is capital structure, or it is between 10 to 15 marks, not more than that. But with respect to the other chapters, like working capital and all other chapters which I've discussed with you, in some examination working capital will be more than 25 marks, in other examination foreign exchange will be more than 20-25 marks. In certain papers, derivatives will take that particular place. So therefore, with these chapters, which are the chapters which I'm going to start with you now onwards, you have to be very, very particular. Please practice all the questions that I do in the classes very, very thoroughly. At least, these questions which I'm doing in the classes, you should be thorough with them. Thorough means that if the question comes on similar lines, not exactly the same question is going to come in the examination, but if a question comes on similar lines, you should be able to do it 100% correct. Okay? So that is what is the level of confidence, and then you have to do some more questions as well. This thing will not end over here. You will have to do more questions, but at least this much you have to do. Okay? Just 1 second. I just need the PPT to be uploaded now. We've already discussed about the production order quantity model. PPT is taking some time to get uploaded because it has become a heavy file now. You can just revise the concepts as the PPT is getting uploaded. Maybe I'll have to stop the video so that the PPT uploads faster. Just a second. Ganesh is asking, ma'am, theory questions are also expected, or only practical are more important in working capital management? In working capital management, I think practical questions are more important. There are very few theory questions which can be asked. But yes, I would not say that theory is never asked. If at all theory comes, it is for 5 marks only. But the practical can range between 20 to 40, 45 marks as well. Ma'am, explain these graphs are necessary, or we can do without it. You can do without it as well, but if you do it with the graphs, I think it becomes all the more clarificatory and all the more interesting. But if you are making a graph, you need to explain that as well. So it should not be that you're simply making a graph and not explaining it. You have to explain the graph very, very clearly, and if you do not use the graph, then also it is fine. It is for better clarity. No issues, so you can skip with the graph, no problem. I just want it to be loaded very fast because it is taking so much of our time. It may take another 3-4 minutes for us to, come to the slide that I'm looking forward to. Nowadays, starting from ATLP to FTFM, you're teaching all the vast chapters. So now I have built up your patience to take up those vast concepts. You should also have the patience to bear a lot of discussion, isn't it? Today we'll be finishing off with working capital management, and I'll be starting with you the security analysis concept as well, but I'm just wishing that this PPT uploads a little faster. So we are at debtors management. In the last class I was discussing this concept with you, and we discussed that debtors are whatever money is lying in the debtors, it can be a cost to the company, and we have to measure this cost and find out different situations under which we can make maximum benefit. So it's like a cost benefit analysis that we were doing in the case of debtors management, that if we give a higher credit period to the debtors, will the debtors be will we be able to reduce the bad debts, and will we be able to increase our sales? So on those aspects we have been discussing in the last class, right? And we did some of the practical questions as well. Now today I would be first discussing with you a question where we would be trying to create a credit matrix, because that is also one of the ways to monitor the debtors, not exactly to manage the debtors, but to monitor the debtors. So starting with the question where I was trying to reach to, it says Ash Limited follows collection policy as detailed below. 10% of the sales is collected in the same month, 20% of the sales is collected in the second month, 40% of the sales are collected in the third month, and 30% of the sales are collected in the fourth month. Sales of the company for the first 3 quarters for the year are as follows. So you have been given the sales of the company for the first 3 quarters, and in that also you have also been given the month of the quarter. So in quarter 1, month 1, the sale is 15,000 rupees, right? So this is 1, 2, 3 is the month of the quarter, and these are the quarter numbers 1, 2 and 3. So in all the quarters you are selling 45,000, you are making sales worth rupees 45,000 rupees. But then you have to find out the average age of receivables. You have to find out the average age of receivables. Now from this particular question you would say, how am I going to find out the average age of receivables? Let us do one thing. Let us first assume that if we make a sale of rupees 100 in a particular month, in that situation, how are we going to collect it? Now the question was clear. 10% we are going to collect in the same month, 20% in the second month, 40% in the third month, and 30% in the fourth month. And I have to find out the average age of receivables per quarter. Now supposing if I take 100 rupees as the sale for every month in the quarter. So in the same month I'm going to collect 10%, in the second month I'm going to collect 20%, and in the third month I'm going to collect 40%, right? And balance at the end of the month would be 30%. Now for the second month, because now I'm talking about a quarter, for the second month of the quarter, Now I'm going to collect 10% in the second month itself, then 20% in the next month, and remaining 70%, because I'm talking about the end of the quarter. So remaining 70% I'm going to collect at the end of the quarter. Then in the third month only 10% is going to be recovered in the third month, and the balance is going to be at the end of the quarter. Now, so recoverables at the end of quarter 1, if I have to find out, it would be, these are my sales, 15,000, 15,000 and 15,000 per month has been given to me in the question. You can see it here, 15,000, 15,000 and 15,000 in quarter 1. Now out of this 15,000, for the sales which I have done in the first month, by the end of the quarter, 70% of it would have been recovered and 30% is balance. You can see it here. 30% is balance. Second month sale, 70% is balance. And third month sale, 90% is balance at the end of the quarter. Right? So, the balance amount at the end of the quarter is 28,500 rupees. 28,500 rupees. Now, let me go to the second month sales, second quarter sales. Second quarter sales are 7,500, 15,000 and 22,500. So again, I use the same formula. I'm going to recover 70%, 30% and 10% for every month, and balance is here. So my balance amount at the end of the second quarter would be 33,000, because this amount of 28,500 I would recover, right? I would be recovering by the fourth month. So I'm not going to add this. Only 33,000 would be remaining at the end of the quarter. Then I go to the third quarter. My amount recoverable, my sales are 22,500, 15,000 and 7,500. I have recovered 70%, 30% and 10% for the 3 months. Balance is this. So my total, which is balance amount, is 24,000 rupees. Now I have to find out my average age of receivables. For the first quarter, my average age is 28,500, which is the outstanding debtors at the end of the quarter, divided by 45,000, which is my sale for that particular quarter, multiplied by 90. So as we do it for every year, we can now do it for every quarter. So in the first quarter, I am receiving, my average age of the debtors is 57 days. I am receiving my payment after 57 days. In the second quarter, I have my outstanding debtors of 33,000 on a sale of 45,000 rupees for 90 days. So it becomes 66 days. So average age of receivables is 66 days in the second case. And in the third case, my outstanding amount is 24,000. My sales was again 45,000 and the period was 90 days. So my average age of receivables is 48 days. So that means that my recovery speed is lowest in quarter 2, because in quarter 2 you can see most of the sales happened in the third month. Right? You can see that most of the sales happened in the third month, and that is why, and as I am receiving only 10% in the initial month, so my quarter 2 sales are, my collection in quarter 2 is the slowest. Are you able to follow? Is it? Now this kind of a question has not been asked for a very long time in the examination, but this is also one of the ways where we can look at the trends and we can try and understand how the company is performing with respect to its credit policy, and that is how the outstanding also becomes. Whatever we sell at the later part of the year, it becomes like if in case of a particular company, assuming a company is having a seasonal business and it has got most of its sales in the last quarter of the year, say in January, those into woolen fabrics and all those kinds of businesses, those who are winter based businesses, in that situation most of their the balance sheets would always be having a very high level of current assets, because if the balance sheet is closing on 31st of March, so the level of debtors, the level of inventory may be higher. March generally is not that very cold, but still as compared to the entire year, their stock levels would be highest in January, then slightly lower than that in February, and then in the March it would be comparatively lower. But as I said, that this balance sheet as on a particular date, when you look at it, it does not give you a very clear picture, because whatever we have been doing throughout the year is not clear when we look at the balance sheet as on a particular date. This question I had already discussed with you, so I'm not going into it again. This is the question now I wanted to discuss. Prince Vision Limited has current all credit sales of rupees 36 lakhs with average collection period of 30 days. 36 lakhs is the sale for the year and average collection period is 30 days. So at a particular point of time, what is the amount of debtors? Anybody? What is the amount of debtors here? Anybody who wants to say? How can it be 1,20,000, Ganesh? It is 3 lakh rupees. Very good. It is 3 lakh rupees. भाई सिंपल सी बात है, इसको यूं देखो कि एक साल की सेल है 36 लाख रुपए और एक महीने का आउटस्टैंडिंग है. So 36 lakhs divided by 12. And if you want to do 36 lakhs divided by 30, then you have to multiply it with 360. नहीं 36 lakhs divided by 30 तो करने का मतलब ही नहीं बनता. 36 lakhs divided by 360 multiplied by 30 आप कर सकते हैं. You're getting my point, Ganesh? Because 36 lakhs is your annual sales. तो आप या तो डेली निकाल लीजिए, राइट, और उसके बाद आप मंथली निकाल लीजिए, या फिर आप सीधा मंथली निकाल लीजिए. So 36 lakhs divided by 12 is equals to 3 lakhs is your amount of debtors. The company is planning to introduce a cash discount policy. 365 पर नहीं लीजिए, 360 पे लीजिए. The calculation will become easier. The company is planning to introduce a cash discount policy of 2/10 net 30. Now what does this mean? Cash discount policy of 2/10 net 30 means that if you make the payment to the company within a period of 10 days, the company will give you a discount of 2%. But if you make the payment within 30 days, then you will have to make the full payment, right? So if you have purchased goods worth rupees 100 from the company and you make the payment within a period of 10 days, then you get 2% discount. So you will be required to pay only 98 rupees. But if you make the payment after 10 days and within 30 days, in that situation, you would be required to pay full amount of rupees 100. Okay? As a result, the company expects the average collection period to go down to 15 days and 80% of the sales to opt for the cash discount policy. So company is planning to introduce this policy that if somebody gives the payment in 10 days, he would be getting a 2% discount, and company is expecting that 80% of the sales will opt this policy, and in that situation, the average collection period will go down to 15 days. If the company's required rate of return on investment in debtors is 20%, should it introduce the new discount policy? Okay. Now what the company is saying that, okay, you give us the payment in 10 days and we'll give you 2% discount. So in that situation, the company is expecting that the collection period will go down to 15 days. Now if the collection period will go down to 15 days, what would be the amount of debtors? Right now the amount of debtors is 3 lakhs. This is what you have calculated. If the period goes down to 15 days, what will be the amount of debtors? Anybody? It's a simple question. If the average collection period is 30 days, you said that the amount of debtors is 3 lakhs. If the period would be 15 days, the amount would be 1,50,000. So that means the company would be able to save 20% interest on rupees 1,50,000 for a period of 15 days. Right? Am I right? ठीक है ना जी? So 20% का interest the company would be able to save for a period of 15 days. You did not understand. See, I said that if my average collection period is reducing from 30 days to 15 days, that means that now earlier 3 lakh rupees used to come back to me after a month. Right, Sneha? Earlier 3 lakh rupees used to come to me after a month. Now the amount which is going to be blocked would be 1,50,000. Right? Amount that will be blocked would be 1,50,000, and this money will come to me in 15 days. Okay? So that means what is saved for me is 15 days interest on 1,50,000. Okay? So that is one benefit that I am going to get. Now, but I will have to pay a cost for it because I will be giving 2% discount to my debtors. Isn't it? So what is the cost? What is the cost? Cost would be 80% of the sales will take this discount. So now let me go to the calculations. Right now my debtors are 3 lakhs. After introduction of credit policy, the cash discount policy, my debtors would be 1,50,000. This is what you have already calculated. So that means now my decrease in investment in debtors is 1,50,000. I would be able to save 20% on this amount. Every month on 1,50,000 is being saved, so I can find out 20% on 1,50,000. So 30,000 rupees will be my saving. Is this fine? Okay. Now, but I will have to 100 minus 80 means what? 80% of the people are going to accept this. Now this is my benefit. 30,000 is my benefit. What is my cost? Of the 36 lakh rupees, 80% of the sales will opt for the cash discount policy. So I will have to give 2% discount on this 80% of the sales. My cost is coming as 57,600. Because my cost is more than the benefit. About very true. Okay, ji? On this incremental concept only, there was a question in the last examination also. Not on this concept, but on some other concept. Can we move to the next question? Okay. It says, this is the question that came in the last examination. It says, a manufacturing firm has credit sales of rupees 360 lakhs. An average collection period is 30 days. So far so good. This is the kind of question that we did. So you know that now the amount involved in debtors is rupees 3 lakhs. The financial controller estimates bad debt losses at around 2% of credit sales. So 2% of credit sales is also going in bad debts. So you can find out 2% of 360 lakhs to find out the amount of bad debts. The firm spends rupees 1,40,000 annually on debtors administration. So there's another cost of 1,40,000 which the firm is spending on administration of debtors. This cost comprises of telephone and internet bills along with salaries of staff members. So far the question is clear. A factoring firm is offered to buy the firm's receivables. The factor will charge 1% commission and will pay an advance against receivables on an interest at the rate of 15% per annum after withholding 10% as reserve. So the factoring firm will withhold 10% as reserve, will charge 1% commission upfront and will also charge 15% interest on the amount that it will advance. What should the firm do? Assume 360 days in an year. Right? The question is clear. Should the firm go for factoring or should it not go for factoring? That is the question. Okay? So I have not left this question for your self-study. I thought that let me solve this with you. Let us do this, and one more question I'll give it to you for self-study. Average age of receivables is rupees average level of receivables is rupees 30 lakhs that you had calculated in the previous question as well. Now let us evaluate the offer. Factoring commission would be 1% of rupees 30 lakhs. Right? It has been given to us that the factoring firm will charge 1% commission, okay, against the receivables. So 1% of 30 lakhs is the factoring commission. It will also keep a reserve of 10% of rupees 30 lakhs, that is rupees 3 lakhs. So total 3,30,000 is the amount that the factoring firm will keep with itself. Okay, and the amount available for advance would be average level of receivables is rupees 30 lakhs. Out of that, we will reduce 10% reserve and 1% commission. That makes it 3,30,000. So 26,70,000 is the amount that the factoring firm will give us. Now on this amount, they will also charge us 15% interest. So 15% interest for a period of 30 days would be 33,375. After charging interest, they will give us 26,36,625 rupees. This is the net amount which will be available for us. Let us evaluate it. Let us compare it with the present situation. The cost that the firm is paying for this is factoring commission 3,60,000 rupees. Factoring commission 3,60,000 rupees. How come 3,60,000? Ek minute ruk jao. On 30 lakhs. Okay, for an year we are saying. For a month it is 30,000 rupees. So for an year factoring commission is 3,60,000 rupees. For an year the interest that they are charging is 33,375 multiplied by 12. That is equals to 4,500,000 rupees. So total per annum cost is coming as 7,60,500. Let us compare it with the present situation. At present, the firm is facing a bad debt of 2% on 360 lakhs. That is coming as 7,20,000, and it is also paying a cost of credit administration of 1,40,000 rupees in terms of telephone expenses and staff salaries. So the total cost which the firm is paying right now is 8,60,000. And if we go for factoring, then they are charging us 3,60,000 as commission and 4,500,000 rupees as an interest, right? So and this reserve they are going to give us back, right? जो ये 3 लाख रुपए का reserve रख रहे हैं ना, this is a reserve amount. This is not a charge that they are taking. This is just a reserve that they are keeping. So this is repayable to us. So in that situation, जो हमें cost पड़ रही है, that is only commission and interest charge of 7,60,000. I hope you are able to understand. Any questions here? There is any alternate method to solve this. What is factoring? You were not there in the last class, Abhishek. Okay, the alternative method is that you can simply go on the per annum thing. यहाँ से अगर आप इसको calculate करते हैं तो भी कर सकते हैं. You might completely avoid this calculation because this is a monthly calculation that we have done. Simply अगर आप इतना भी करेंगे तो भी आपका आंसर सेम ही आएगा. And this is quite easily understandable that factoring commission you can calculate on a per annum basis. You can calculate interest also on per annum basis. Do the calculation on per annum. And another alternative is that you can convert the present situation also into monthly, right? And compare it on a monthly basis as well. Okay? These can be the alternative methods. Abhishek is asking what is factoring. See, Abhishek, there are various companies which buy the book debts of the corporates. Like, you though it is not actually factoring, but still in order to understand, I'm giving you an example. Many a times when you get a call from any of the telecom service providers or the credit card companies, they say that we are calling, we are calling on behalf of Vodafone or Airtel or Citibank or whichever bank it is, and they are not actually, they have bought the outstanding bills from them and they're doing the collection activity. They say we are collection agents of Vodafone or Airtel or any of the credit card companies. Any idea, Abhishek, about it? So what are they doing? They have paid the money to Vodafone, they have paid the money to Airtel, they've paid the money to these companies. Yeah. And then they are not exactly recovery agents, but they are collection agents. There's a difference between recovery agent and collection agent. Okay? So what they're doing, they are collecting money on behalf of Vodafone or whatever. Now similarly, there is another system in the financial segment. Now this is from a very legal side, it looks like. Recovery agent is more of a legal business. But when we talk about the finance world, in the finance world, RBI gives the permission to some of the non-banking financial companies to act as factoring companies, where these factoring companies, they can buy the book debts, provide the funds against these book debts to the corporates, and later on they can collect the money from the debtors. And in case, now this factoring can be with recourse and without recourse. With recourse means that if the debtor does not pay the money, then the factoring company will inform the corporate that your debtor has not paid the money, so the same amount is realized back from the corporate. And without recourse means where the factoring company pays you the money, and whether your debtor pays or does not pay, that is the problem of the factoring company. Now for this service, the factoring company is definitely going to charge you interest, because it is giving you payment upfront, where your debtor will make the payment to the factoring company after a particular period of time. And in order to provide the service, the factoring company not only charges you interest but also a commission. And at times they also charge you a reserve, because reserve is for against your bad debts. Because in this particular case, the company had got a huge amount of bad debts, so the factoring company has also kept a reserve. In that situation, if there is going to be a bad debt situation, then the factoring company will now it has not been told to us whether it is with recourse or without recourse. So the adjustment will happen according to the terms of contract between the company and the factoring company. Is it clear? Okay. So as I was saying that the concept was a favorite concept for the examiner in the June 16 examination in the new syllabus. So there was one more question. Isha Limited is a company having annual credit sales of rupees 30 lakhs. It deals in only one product. Currently it has an average collection period of 30 days. It is anticipated that liberalization of credit terms can lead to increase in sales as indicated below. They have given you the increase in collection period and increase in sales. The unit selling price for the product is rupees 50 and its unit variable cost is rupees 30. At current volume, it has got a total unit cost of rupees 35. So you can find out the fixed cost here. It also noted that liberalization of credit will lead to the following incidents of bad debts losses. So if we liberalize the credit period, then there will be more bad debts. Currently, the company is free from bad debt losses. What will be the most rewarding credit policy under these circumstances? The company expects a return of 18% on investment. Tabulate your presentation. Assume 360 days in a year. Now, on these lines, I have already discussed a question with you in the last class. So, I am giving this question to you as a homework question. You have to solve it and send me the solution by email. So, I'm sure you would be able to do it, because we have already done one question on these lines. So just give it a try. If you're not able to solve it, then we'll be doing it in the next class. One more question in the last examination in the new syllabus. Alliance Limited having annual sales of rupees 80 lakhs, extends 30 days credit period to its debtors. The variable cost is estimated at 80% of sales and fixed costs are rupees 8 lakhs. Company intends to change the credit policy for which the following information is given. Average collection period and annual sales. Rate of return pre-tax required on investment is 20%. You are required to assess the most profitable policy with the help of incremental approach. Calculations may be restricted to 2 decimal points. Assume 365 days in an year. Again, this was a June 16 question. I was really surprised as to what is the intention of the examiner. Similar kinds of questions being asked for 10 marks and 8 marks. Maybe that they were in alternative. Let me just, yeah, it could have been that it could be one question in 4 and one question in 4A. So that means that they wanted that this is one question that should be answered. So no alternative might have been given. I have not checked the question numbering here. Okay. So again, this can be your, because both the questions are on similar lines. I am giving you both of them for homework. ठीक है जी, दोनों एक जैसे से questions हैं. I think you can try them and come with your solutions in the next class. Let us see. Okay. So from debtors management, now I am going to the financing of current assets or the financing of working capital. A very small topic which I would like to finish off very fast because there is nothing much to be discussed. See, the thing is that we've already discussed some aspects. What we discussed first was that what should be the level of current assets, right? That is what we tried to estimate, that if we have a very conservative policy, we would be keeping a high level of current assets. If we have a if we have a conservative policy, yeah, we would be keeping a very high level of current assets, and if we have a very restrictive policy, then we would be keeping a very low level of current assets. Then we tried to understand as to how can we manage the various aspects, how can we manage with the inventory, how can we manage with the debtors. Now I am coming to the third aspect of working capital management, which is how do we finance this? Because if I have to invest in debtors, if I have to invest in inventory, debtors, you've still seen that there can be ways and means that you can go to a factoring company and enter into an agreement with them. But what could be other ways of raising funds against your current assets? So there could be various ways. One is that you can go for short-term loans. These are generally, as I discussed with you in case of the level of current assets as well, that whenever you have any kind of seasonal requirements, then you should go for short-term loans, right? So in that situation, you can pledge your shares, you can pledge some government securities, life insurance policies of FDs that you have, and against that you can take a loan from your bank. This is a short-term loan. These loans are generally taken when we have some seasonal requirements, and the moment the season is over and we've recovered the money from the debtors, we repay these short-term loans. The second way of financing the working capital can be by way of overdrafts. This happens where the bank, gives you a facility to withdraw an amount more than what is there as a balance in your account. So supposing I've got 100 rupees in my bank account, the bank, cash credit also I'm going to discuss. Now this is an overdraft which is generally given no, I'm not talking about cash credit right now. I'm just talking about an overdraft facility. This is generally given when you are a regular customer of a bank, and the bank is and a particular check comes and you do not have balance in your account, but you have got an FD account also with the bank. So in order to facilitate its good customers, the bank provides this overdraft facility. This is when you withdraw in excess of the credit balance in your bank account. Third is, I'll first take the cash credits. Here, and we've got a banker with us, Dipali, who would be able to give us, a better idea on this. Then we have, the cash credit limits. Here, you present a proposal to the bank, and you present that what is going to be the estimated level of your inventory and what is going to be the estimated level of your debtors, and against that the bank is going to ask you to keep some margins, as we had discussed in one of the questions, that you have to keep some amount as your own money, that is called the margin money, and the remaining amount is decided as a cash credit limit by the bank. So up to that amount you can utilize the credit facility at any point of time. That is called a cash credit arrangement, which is given to a particular customer based upon his proposal that he submits to the bank. Bank fixes up a limit, and on a monthly basis you have to submit your inventory levels and your debtor levels to the bank, and based upon the levels and based upon the margins that you have brought in, the bank fixes a drawing power. So within that cash credit limit also, your drawing power might be lower than the limit itself. So supposing your limit is say 1 crore rupee, but in the off seasons you do not keep a very high level of debtors, and you do not have a very high level of inventory. So in that situation your drawing power may be reduced to 50 lakh rupees only. So that completely depends upon, because your debtors and your inventory is hypothecated to the bank. So the more of inventory you have, the more of debtors you have, the more of limit you can utilize in case of cash credit limits. The third one was clean overdrafts. Clean overdrafts are where the bank gives you a facility to withdraw the money, to withdraw the money beyond your current account balance without even keeping an FDR. Clean overdraft means that there is no collateral for this particular overdraft. No inventory is hypothecated, no FD has been kept. It's a clean overdraft which is given only to those customers which are really very financially sound and which have got a very high level of reputation. So the bank does not take any security except the personal security of the borrower in this situation. This is called a clean overdraft. Okay. The next is advances against goods, where you request the bank to gives you a kind of a limit or a loan where you give your goods which you have in stock as the finished goods, or maybe the raw material as a security, and that is hypothecated with the bank, and the bank gives you a loan against these goods. So short-term loans can be given by keeping the goods as a security, or it can be given by keeping any FD as a security, or it can be given simply on a personal guarantee, or by keeping your gold, or by keeping your any kind of NSCs, your government securities, your equity, of course, can be kept. So for short-term loans you can keep anything as a guarantee, or it can even be on a personal guarantee or a corporate guarantee. But advances against goods, you will always be keeping your inventory as a hypothecation. Or the bank can also provide you a facility of bill discounting, which you might have done in your earlier levels. What is bill discounting? Where we issue bills of exchange to our customers, and the customers accept these bills of exchange, and they undertake to pay within a period of 2 months or 3 months. Now you have got the bill in hand, and if the bill has been accepted by a very reputed customer, or the bill has been confirmed by the banker of a customer, in that situation your banker will discount that bill and make you the payment. So again, you've got the money against your debtors or against your bills receivable. Another way of financing your current assets can be advance against documents of title to goods. Now this is very interesting. What happens that in case when we import something or when we export something, in that situation the material takes some time to come through sea, right? Because if it is coming in a ship, it takes some time, maybe 7 days, 10 days, or at times even a month. Now what happens that during the time when the material is in transit, at that particular point of time, the documents of that particular material, which can be your bill of lading, your custom receipts, your railway receipts, your dock or the warehouse keeper's certificate, these goods are transferred from one person to another by endorsing on these documents. Okay, they are called documents of title to goods. Anybody in whose name the documents of title are would be going to the customs department or would be going to the warehouse and will be capable of getting the delivery of the goods. Now, if the goods are still in transit or if the goods are in warehouse and the documents have been endorsed in my name, I would be considered as the owner of these goods. I can go to the bank, and on the basis of these documents of title to goods, I can take a loan from the bank. You're getting my point? So here, because this document of title is recognized in law or in the custom also, that it is custom means in the business customs also, it is recognized that a person in whose name the documents of title are, that person is the owner of the goods, and anybody who's the owner of the goods can pledge the goods to the bank, and the bank can give the money, can give a loan against these goods. Or it can be an advance against supply of bills. Now that can happen where you have supplied certain goods to the government department, and you know it very well that in government departments it takes time to realize the payment. Now you have raised the bill but the payment has not come in. So these supply bills can be discounted by, or can be kept as can be kept as a security with the bank, and the bank gives a loan against these supply bills as well. So there are various ways in which working capital can be financed. Why do we have various ways? Because in business you never know when you require a short-term fund. Because many a times, you know what happens, you're sitting in your office and somebody approaches you with a very good deal and is providing you raw material at a very cheap rate. Now whatever be your inventory levels or whatever, now you do the, you just do an analysis like, what should be done. And maybe because of, like, we've done the quantity discount models, etc., where in one of the examples we had taken that if we go by the EOQ model, we are supposed to buy 4,000 rims, but if I go by the quantity discount model, I can buy even 18,000 rims. Now suddenly if a particular proposal comes in front of me and somebody is offering me a good discount and I decide to buy 18,000 rims, I need money to buy that, isn't it? So if my cash credit limit would not be sufficient to provide me with those kinds of resources. So therefore I need to arrange funds for a short period of time. So I have got various alternatives. I can go for a short-term loan, I can go for a clean overdraft, I can go for advance against goods, I can go for any overdraft facility, I can go for various kinds of, I can go for advance against documents to title to goods, etc., etc. So these are the various ways which are regularly utilized in business. Because if a good deal comes in front of you, you would be, and many a times, you get a very good quality product at a cheap price, or you go in a particular, or you travel abroad and you get a very good product which is good for your business, and you want to, you want to buy it because when you import, you have to import a full container load, because otherwise it becomes very, very expensive. So in those situations, suddenly there is a requirement of short-term funds, and for that you can approach a bank and you can get these funds arranged through various means, right? So the facilities are clear. Okay, now coming to see, when we look at it from the banker's perspective, so far we have been looking at it from a corporate's perspective. Now we go from the perspective of the banker. See, the banker's bank is Reserve Bank of India, and Reserve Bank of India does not want banks to be very, very aggressive in providing loans to the corporates. So the Reserve Bank of India keeps on giving its guidelines and directives to the banking sector so that the banking sector does not become very, very aggressive. Now over a period of time since 1991, banks have been liberalized and the regulation of bank finance has been reduced to almost zero. But before that, Reserve Bank of India used to regularly appoint committees, and these committees have always made their recommendations to control the tendency of the banks to overfinance or to divert the bank funds, or so that the bank's funds should not be diverted into unproductive areas. So a lot of committees have been appointed by Reserve Bank of India in the past. Now the recommendations of these committees are not mandatorily to be followed by the banks, but some of the recommendations are still being followed by the banks because they were really good. So the committees which were appointed were Tandon Committee, the Heja Committee, Core Committee, and Marathe Committee. I'm not going to discuss with you all the committees, but the recommendations of Tandon Committee are still very relevant for working capital finance. So Tandon Committee was set up under the chairmanship of Shri P.L. Tandon in 1974, and still, as I said, the recommendations have been influenced. The banks are still influenced by the recommendations of Tandon Committee, though after the financial liberalization, it is not mandatory for them to follow the recommendations. The terms of reference of the Tandon Committee are not very important. The important is the recommendations which have been given by Tandon Committee. Tandon Committee had given the norms for the current asset financing, and they had set up the maximum permissible bank finance, the maximum limit up to which the bank can give loan to a corporate. And they had also given certain recommendations on industry-wise, the limits. They had also given the periodic information and reporting system, that what are the periodic reports which are required to be submitted by a borrower to the bank, so that the bank can review as to whether the loan is being properly utilized or not. They have also given, as I said, the recommendations for 15 industries as to what should be the level of current assets in these 15 industries. We are not going for that. We are most concerned with the maximum permissible bank finance as per Tandon Committee. As per Tandon Committee said that what should be the maximum level that the bank can finance for a particular corporate. They've given 3 methods. Under the first method, the amount which can be given by the bank is the lowest. In the second method, it is in the middle range. And if you go by the third method, then it is the highest amount that the bank can give. So from the lowest to the highest, 3 methods have been given, and beyond that the bank cannot give any loan to the corporate for the purpose of working capital, as per Tandon Committee. Right? Now, as I said, Tandon Committee is not mandatory but still being followed. Now in this, the first formula for maximum permissible bank finance by Tandon Committee was that a bank can give maximum 75% of current assets minus current liabilities. That means that if a particular company had got 100 rupees of current assets and 50 rupees of current liabilities, in that situation the bank can finance 75% of 50 rupees. No, I'll not take current liabilities as 50, otherwise it will get confusing. Let me take it here. So Tandon Committee said that if the current assets are assuming rupees 100 and current liabilities are say 20, in that situation, under the first method, a bank can give 75% of 100 minus 20. That is 75% of 80 rupees. So bank can give up to rupees 60. 80 ka 75% is 60. Okay. Now the second method. In the second method, the Tandon Committee said that bank can give 75% of current assets minus current liabilities. It would be 0.75 multiplied by 100 minus 20. So it would be 75 minus 20, that would be equal to 55 rupees. Right? In the third method, they say that a bank can finance 75% of current assets minus core current assets and then minus current liabilities. 75% of current assets minus core current assets and minus current liabilities. Now what are core current assets? See, as we discussed initially also, that in any business you've got some portion as permanent portion of current assets and some is the temporary seasonal requirement. So they said that whatever are your core current assets, that you should finance yourself. As per the third method, whatever are the core current assets that the company should finance itself, permanent portion of your current assets should be financed through long-term sources. That is what we also discussed initially when we discussed about the financing of current assets. So it says that now, assuming out of these 100 rupees, your core current assets are say rupees 40. Okay, so the bank says, the Tandon committee report says, then you should finance 75% of 100 minus 40 minus 20. So then it would be 75% of 60. 75% of 60 would be 3 by 4, 15. 15 3 is a 45. 45 minus 20 is equals to 35 rupees. 25 rupees. Right. So in that situation, so under the three methods, as we are moving from first method to second method to third method, we are becoming, the bank is becoming very, very strict in financing. Right? Are you able to follow the three methods? So the most highly recommended method is the second method, which is neither very strict nor very lenient. Okay? Second method is 75% of current assets minus current liabilities. Okay? At times they ask this question in the examination, but recently in the last examination they've moved from this and they're now asking about the margins only. So as as I said that after 1991, these methods are not mandatory to be followed by the banks. Banks are now generally deciding upon the margins. So they say that, okay, you have to keep now the method which is being followed. Now this is as per Tandon committee, but the method which is now being followed invariably, which is a part of your CMA data as well. CMA data is a kind of report which the corporates are required to give to the bank with every proposal that they submit, and then on every quarterly basis, right? So on this, in this CMA data, there is a method to calculate the drawing power. So in that it says that every bank will give its own norms about the margins. We have already done this question in the last class. So in this, the bank says that, okay, we are going to provide you the funding against inventory. Now if your inventory is 100 and if you're ready to give us a margin of 20%, so that means the 20 rupees you have to bring in yourself and the remaining 80 rupees will be financed by the bank. Okay. Now similarly, but in this situation, in the last examination, the question that came was very clear that 20% is going to be the margin. And in general situations, when we calculate this 20%, we generally reduce creditors also from inventory. While making the CMA data, creditors are reduced from inventory, but in the last examination question, this was not asked to be done, and that is why the solution does not reduce the creditors amount. Creditors and from the debtors, we reduce the advances. And then we calculate the remaining amount and then we calculate the margin. Is it clear? Is it getting clear or am I confusing you? It's getting clear. Now why do we reduce it? Why do we reduce it? Because bank wants to finance only for the money that you are, because if I have already purchased inventory on credit, then why should bank give me loan? If I already have advances, then why should the bank pay me against debtors? Right? So we take the net amount generally, and then the margin is calculated on the net amount, and then the drawing power is decided. Okay? So this was all about, I think, working capital management. There is one example also in this which I've already to some extent discussed with you. This was all about working capital management. With this we finish with the financial management portion of your FTFM syllabus. Now we would be moving towards treasury and forex management. Okay, so financial management part is over. This is in most of the examinations around, on an average it is around 50% of what we have already discussed. It can go to 60-70% as well, as has happened in the last examination. Tandon committee concept, etc. are important or not? See, in working capital chapter, everything is important. I do not want to leave anything, because something or the other has to be asked. So why do we leave anything? Okay, it is a very, very important chapter, so I don't leave anything. Not much. Whatever theory I've discussed, do not go to all this which I've already given you. This is just for your in case you're interested in knowing. There's nothing to learn out of these various recommendations of Tandon committee. Basically, if you read these recommendations, you just tend to understand, how the banking system actually works. But you don't have to remember this. You should know that how the banking system works if you're a student of financial management, because there might be a 5-mark question which is asked on NPA management at times. At times they ask you a simple question that banks must lend with care, or higher level of NPAs is a problem to the banking system. At times they're asking you about the questions about how do the banks transform the risks. So the banking system as such, there can be a chance of getting a 5-mark question. So which textbook we should consider for practical and theoretical aspects? See, for theoretical aspects, you can even rely on the study material, but then there are good authors which are like your Khan and Jain. We have I.M. Pandey. If you want to study foreign authors, you can study Van Horn, is a very good author on financial management. So, and practical questions are also available in Khan and Jain and I.M. Pandey. Khan and Jain has got a full, full book on practical questions. P.C. Tulsian, I think he is an author for law, if I'm not wrong. IPCC के लिए, it's a book by I think Rastagi की बुक है ना, मुझे दिमाग से निकल नहीं, जेपी शर्मा। एक सेकेंड, मैंने इनिशियल क्लासेस में शायद आपको बताया है, इट्स जेपी शर्मा है या क्या नाम है, जेपी कुछ है, अभी दिमाग से निकल रहा है मेरे। Tulsian, I think, is a good author. J.B. Gupta. Yeah, thank you so very much, Ganesh. J.B. Gupta is a very good author. You can follow that if you can. थोड़ी सी advanced level की book है for IPCC and CA final. I think J.B. Gupta is best. It is tough, but as I said, it covers most of the syllabus for CA final. ठीक है? So it's already 9:30. I think I would be starting with security analysis in the next class, because a new topic in the new class would be good. Today we're finished with working capital management. So let's start with security analysis in the next class. ठीक है जी? आज काफी हो गया. And we have the exam preparatory this weekend for full working capital management. ठीक है? Full working capital means estimation भी आएगा, inventory भी आएगा, debtors भी आएगा, Tandon committee भी आएगा. Yes, and on this Saturday only. This Saturday, ठीक है, 8:15 PM. चलिए, so